What happens when the church sends one of its own into the darkness? Not with the Bible alone, but with decades of experience battling forces most priests refuse to acknowledge. Welcome back to The Common Historian, where history meets the supernatural. I'm Jeremy, the Common Historian, and tonight, a retired Roman Catholic priest, demonologist, and founder of the Holy Swords, who has spent decades on the front lines in spiritual warfare, Father Bob Bailey, the paranormal padre. Grab your favorite beverage, dim the lights, and prepare to journey into the world where history refuses to stay buried. Welcome, Father Bailey. Bob, how are you tonight?
Thank you very much. I'm doing well. Pleasure to be out there.
Oh, I'm very excited to have you on here. I know you've had a long day. You said you just got back from Gettysburg, so
Yeah,
a weekend retreat. I believe that's what it was, kind of a weekend retreat.
yeah. It was great. It was low key, compared to like Paracons. So
Yeah, yeah. I saw some pictures. It looked like it was a fun time.
yeah,
Uh,
it was.
for listeners who aren't familiar, how does a priest end up, or a Catholic priest become the paranormal padre? What was that turning point?
I think it was a gradual. It was a gradual progression in my life. Even when I was young, I had heard about miracles and visions of Mary and Jesus and the saints and what they've done and all of that. And as a young person, and I had a priest in the family, my mother's cousin, who taught me a lot. And particularly in an age in the 70s where they were downplaying miracles and all that, they weren't talking about them as much. My cousin did teach me, and even the reality of the demonic, the devil and evil. So, but latent inside of me was always an attraction to the theme of good versus evil, even in the movies. Even I loved horror movies, but I loved especially when good versus evil. So I'm a Dracula fan,
Oh, yeah.
but the old time Dracula, not like Twilight or anything like that. Nothing against it, but it goes against all my vampire lore. So and stuff like that. And in the Omen, especially in the 70s, when I was in junior high school or high school, when the Omen came out, I something just hit me. And I was with all my friends, and I said, somehow I'm connected to that movie. It made an impression on me. And so, but it went latent because none of my friends were into the paranormal, certainly, and as much into ghost stories and stuff like that. So it wasn't until I became a priest and then later a pastor that I met some people with the paranormal community. And it's like, wow, we can talk paranormal. And then when I became a fan of Paranormal State, watching it, I just felt moved as a priest to write to Ryan and to tell him, I support you. I'm a fan. And he answered right away. And he said, if you want to meet, and he was going to Massachusetts for a case. And then he asked, would you mind helping me on the case? I did. I said yes right away. And from then on, we hit it on. And then he had me on the show for a few seasons until I just couldn't do that because I was also like that anymore because I was a full-time pastor. And sometimes I would have to, within a day or two's notice, when they figured out that it was a demonic case, to fly up and
Yeah.
it's that out there and known and working on cases, starting a warrior group. Someone coined the phrase, and it might have been Ryan, and I don't remember because it was so long ago, the paranormal padre. And so going through some experiences, working with people, working with teams, I decided when I found the Holy Sword Apostolate to just again to go out as a paranormal padre on my own, so I could work with different groups, those who wanted to work with me, and I had the freedom to network myself. So
Yeah.
and the paranormal was not a leap of faith for me because I already believed in miracles, apparitions, the works of the saints, and all of that. And that is paranormal.
Yeah, that it
over the
really
moment.
is. Yeah, Paranormal State. I always like that show. I've never met Ryan, but maybe someday.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, and the thing that was unique for me with them, the reason why I so much supported it even before it was on there, is because they were client oriented, and he was seriously client oriented. I saw him in action during the seasons. He was all about the clients, and that rather than going to just haunted places, which can be fun, but how many times can you go to the same asylum or
Yeah,
same penitentiary and not hear about the groups? These people are actually making a difference in people's lives.
yeah. There's a difference there.
Mm,
Now, there is a distinction a lot of people miss. You're not an official exorcist. Can you
no.
explain the difference between
Yeah.
deliverance ministry and the formal exorcism?
Yes, there is different levels of demonic influence. The most basic is temptation. We're tempted to say no to God and yes to temptation and sin. And so that's where, we get that subtle little tip. You could say the good angel, bad angel, that whole scenario.
Yeah,
But temptation is the lowest, the basic form that we all go through at times. But then there's also stages like oppression. That's when you are being oppressed from the outside by something dark or demonic. It's not possession, but they're attacking from the outside. Also, obsession. Again, that's a level where it works on you to be obsessed with things. Then there's infestation. Infestation is when a demonic entity is within a space, like a home, a building, or land, or whatnot. That's another form. And then the most severe and relatively rare, although I argue now there's more of it than there was in the past, is demonic possession. And demonic possession is when the evil spirit takes over the body and eclipses the person. That's a very dangerous thing to do. So we cannot willy-nilly just go and do an exorcism. And I get really nervous when I see people say, I'm an exorcist. I've done all these exorcisms. Okay. Have you read real life not episodes, but events in like Father Gabriel Amorth and all the major exorcists, Carlos Martins? It's not pretty, and it's not something that's just pop in, pop out. Yeah, there are sometimes when a person, may have a lower level of possession, but it doesn't just pop in and pop out. It's dangerous to the victim, it's dangerous to the priest, it's dangerous to anybody else who'd be helping them. So the bishop, there's criterion set down in the ancient ritual of what they look for in a priest to do an exorcism. And the bishop has to make that decision based on that. It also has, a ailment or a physical ailment that, that they're suffering from. So before an exorcism would be allowed, they would have to have a physical exam and a psychological exam. If both of these are still left questions, and some of the telltale signs set up in the ritual, then the bishop is free then to say, okay, I'm going to I am going to sanction a exorcism. And the priest has to be known for his holiness, his faith, his way of life. I don't think I'm holy enough for that. I'm just being honest.
yeah,
I'm not looking to be an exorcist. I think anybody that does and brags about it should not be an
yeah,
exorcist. It's not something any priest, these guys that are out there, the priests that are out there, because they're sanctioned by the church, and they're only speaking now because they never used to educate the public. But they don't take pleasure in what they're doing. They weren't in line raising their hand saying, choose me. No, they were chosen to do it.
yeah. Now, when you go in, what do you do currently? I know you explain the different levels.
Mhm.
Which level do you go up to?
The most common that I have done is infestation. So I will go into a home, a place, a land, property, whatever, that they suspect that there is some kind of a dark entity wreaking havoc. I also have done deliverance over people who have been obsessed and oppressed. I did go into a home once. I could tell you about that one. That was interesting. It was, I was on my way. I had a group called PWSM, and me and my partner Rob and his wife, who was, what do they call it? I always forget but she helps, with getting everything set up, all the information.
Okay.
Well, there's a word for it. I always forget it. Anyway, she decided to come with us. So we're driving to Massachusetts, and she always drinks iced tea. She goes, "This tea smells of urine." And I'm going, "What?" So my friend goes, "Come on." So he grabs it, smells it. He said, "It does." And now I'm going, okay. So I said, "Let me smell it." I smelled it. It wasn't tea, it was urine. So I said, "What the hell are we in for?"
Mm.
We go into the house, and there's the young woman on the bed, sitting in a, a flood of urine, puddle of
Mm.
urine. And it's like, oh boy. So I'm assuming still it's oppression, and I'm going on for a couple hours. Finally, I'm exhausted. And now I begin to see, she's exhibiting signs of the possessed. I mean, like immense strength. Her boyfriend was, you know, quite strong, quite built, and he was having problems handling her. She was speaking in other languages and knowing some things. And so I said, "Whoa, wait a minute. This is over my pay grade." So I had to stop at that point and tell him, "Listen, let me go talk to the bishop of the diocese," which I did. And the bishop, I happened to have known him. So I said, "Do you have an exorcist?" He said, "Yes." And so he took it from there. But again, that was the closest, the most severe case. I was also on a team before I was a priest. I wasn't the exorcist, but I was there. My entire role was to just continuously say the Hail Mary in the group
Oh,
during the exorcism. And yeah, that was quite an ordeal too.
so you founded the Holy Sword Apostolate.
Also,
What was the catalyst, and what does the organization
mhm.
do to help people? A little bit overview of it.
I have a website, and what it is, as of right now, it's myself. I have a case manager that helps, who's also my manager. And then I have a group of about 10 individuals who are our prayer warriors. And so what happens is when a case comes in, then we assess the case and see how better it can be helped. And that will be through the traditional series of sending a questionnaire and looking at that. I can't travel like I used to, so it's hard to take individual cases out of state. So basically, the Holy Sword is a vehicle for education, to educate and to equip people in the knowledge of spiritual warfare. So I have a website, and that's what we do. So, and we try to answer questions with them about that. And I give, workshops or lectures. I just am in a now I'm getting ready to publish a workbook on, my years of experience and what I do, and then to give it as a guide to groups or individuals seeking to know about spiritual warfare and even about doing investigations, what they need to be careful about in investigations. And the reason why I call it a holy sword is many years ago, back in, I believe it's 2005, 2006, I took a group to Italy, and I went to St. Michael's Cave where St. Michael appeared. When I was kneeling in a little side chapel alone, I could see in a vision in my mind's eye St. Michael, and he had his sword, and he did a thing where he knighted me, on the forehead,
Yeah.
and okay, and so I felt the blessing of that, and then he gave me his sword.
Oh,
And so at that point, I felt the anointing of St. Michael. So when I renamed names, I used to have PWSM, the Praetorian Warriors of St. Michael. I named it the Holy Sword after that episode with St. Michael.
oh, very nice. So, I know that you also consult for a few different groups, if I remember correctly. Now, what does a clergy consultation bring to a paranormal investigation team that you
Uh,
can't, that they can't provide alone?
well, I mean, obviously, it's like a chaplain to them,
Okay.
or a religious, like if they need the knowledge or they might need my assistance in a case, I would consult in that way. So, like, for instance, for Nesper, I've been part of that because of my love for the Warrens and my working with Lorraine Warren for a while. Also for Ryan, because of our association, I'm his go-to priest. Bruno, which is another clergy consultant. So if they need a Catholic priest or something in the brand of Christianity, they will consult me on that. And so, and even for Elton over at the Warrens
Yeah.
house. So, yeah, and also a group with Bill Slevin, Dr. Bill Slevin, his group. I also am a clergy consultant. So it's basically kind of like a chaplain. I have a vested interest in those groups, and very recently, I've had the pleasure to meet Nick and Tessa Groff. I
Yeah.
was with them this weekend. We hit it off immediately. Tessa and I, it was like we knew each other for 10 years. And so, that they felt some comfortableness in with me.
That I did see that they were there as well
Yeah.
this weekend. I kind of followed the whole group. I saw that you were going and a few others, so it was a kind of an intimate gathering.
It was also because unfortunately people brought in some summoning things and brought something into the Jenny Wade house that
Oh,
went over into the orphanage across the way. And I had to do a deliverance
oh,
later. So it was Tessa and Nick and myself that did it like 2:30 in the morning. But it was successful in that we got it out at that point.
yeah.
So
Well, that's good. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Because I know the orphanage and all in the Jenny Wade house are on my wanted to do list that I would like to visit. I did interview someone from our Milt from the Farnsworth House Inn a
Oh,
few months.
nice. Good food.
I've never been, but
Good food.
I've heard that there's that place is quite haunted. He told me a bunch of stories. I've enjoyed that. I think actually there's a you were speaking of working with Lorraine Warren. I
Mhm.
believe there's a room in there I think is the basement that she had put a seal on, I believe.
Probably, yeah. I know she's connected. Well, I did not get into the basement of the Farnsworth house that night. It was only so much I could do.
Yeah.
I was invited to go down, but I just didn't. But it was active that night that my friends went.
Yeah, because he was telling me about that there's something that's not, I don't think it's demonic, but it's not nice down
Right.
there. So she had put up a ward or something there.
Yeah.
I guess it's still there. Now, you had worked closely with the late Lorraine Warren. What did that relationship teach you, and how did it shape your approach to what you do today?
Well, it helped me in a lot of ways because, again, through Ryan, because she helped on cases at Paranormal State as I did.
Yeah,
So got the occasion to work with her, and we hit it off immediately. I mean, she loves priests, but I just, it's something about her I loved, and she, but the relationship I just learned is how to differentiate that people can have abilities, and it's not necessarily a pagan thing. Like I didn't understand like when she said a medium or a psychic, that also in the Christian world, psychic abilities are gifts of the Holy Spirit, knowledge, wisdom, discernment of spirits, all of that kind of stuff. And so I learned to see that in an appreciative way for my future. And also in cleansing houses, she taught me how to cleanse the property outside, which is burying the holy metals, which I do to this day. And I encourage people to have the blessed metals in the four corners of the property, but mostly to be loving and open to other people. You don't have to believe what other people hold, but that's why I think the secret of me being so popular within the paranormal community is because I meet so many different people from so many different backgrounds and traditions. And so I'm able to work with them. I'm grounded in my own faith and I don't feel threatened by other people's,
Yeah.
whether I believe them or not. And that's the difference. Because of that, I've been able to create inroads. Like I've worked hand in hand with Native American shamans, especially in New England. Chances are, if there's a haunt, this has something to do with Native Americans, the
Yeah.
properties. So I would go and do my banishing and the house exorcism. And then after that, then the shaman would come in and again do what they had to do and create a positive, according to their own, like they use smudging or they use sage. Sage was never meant by the Native Americans to do spiritual warfare. That's what a lot of people would understand. Create a positive implement, positive in there. So it is absolutely a beautiful thing to do. Use the holy incense for holy fumigation, which is meant for warfare. And so
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be doing that years ago.
Now, when you walk into a location, what are you looking for before you determine whether something is generally paranormal versus something with a natural explanation?
Good question. A good investigator will not begin with the premise of there's something here and I'm going to prove that. No, a good investigator will go, I want to see if there is an explanation, some kind of whether it be, a natural explanation or maybe even a psychological explanation with the client. And so you to go in with an open, objective mind. And so you look for, again, is there proof? Is there any activity going on that you experienced firsthand? When we were down at the orphanage and Nick Groff put on the tape and we were asking questions or just I was doing religious provocation in silence that other people didn't know, you could hear the growls on the
Oh,
tape. Yeah. So you look for those kind of things, but also the preliminary, most groups, and I endorse this, is to have questionnaire, to ask some questions beforehand so that you can create a picture and know, try and have knowledge when you're going in there. The difference with myself is even if I go in there and find that there's a positive explanation or a plausible explanation that's not paranormal, it never hurts to bless a house. It
yeah.
brings that peace of mind. It brings a blessing. So that's the difference with my ministry.
Okay. Now, you've said that like mold, faulty wiring, psychological
Yes.
factors have been
Yes.
used to has to be ruled out first. How often do you walk into a case and conclude it's simply not paranormal? Is
A
that
lot of
often?
times.
A
It
lot of
used to
times.
be a lot of times. Yeah. And sincere homeowners, clients will go, oh, you know, but for others, it's more difficult because they're convinced that it is, and they don't want to hear that. They want to hear that it's paranormal. And then I'm sure if you've done them, you've experienced that too with some experience. That's very difficult to explain otherwise. You got to really use a lot of diplomacy and but
Yeah.
still being candid with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, you can't. lead them on to make them think that there
No,
is. You have to be blunt and say there isn't. And
right,
even if that's not what they want to hear some of the
correct,
time.
correct.
So, where does demonic activity end and mental health begin? I know the line seems razor thin. How do you navigate that responsibly?
Again, through a psychological examination of the individual, even through the questionnaire that you ask, because I would also ask about medications that they're currently taking, or if they've been diagnosed with any kind of illnesses or mental illness. However, that doesn't rule out that there may not be a spiritual reason too,
Yeah,
because if the devil's going to work on, he's going to find an easy victim. And I remember, I believe it was Father Gabriel Morton, the chief exorcist of Rome, saying in a lot of these insane asylums, people who really are possessed, but because there's no room for that in most of mental health, they get sent in for that reason. And sometimes it's both. So you have to deal a two-pronged healing process. You have to heal the spiritual part of it, but you also have to help heal. And
so, you've been on a few different, the Paranormal State, the Haunted Expedition X. How
yeah,
accurately do these shows represent what this work actually is?
I think all of them fall short in this, that they have to create an entire show within a half hour or an hour. That's not reality. Like the Paranormal State, they're there for days,
Yeah,
and but you got to kind of capsulize all of that. If people don't understand correctly, they think it can be done within an hour. Like, oh, please go in, do this, and then we want to go back with our lives. No, you can't, because then there's also counseling afterwards that I have to do that may not be on the camera, and may not want to do. But I mean, there's things the victims have to do afterwards to be sure that these things entities don't come back, or there might be some counseling to work on, like say their marriage, because the enemy is trying to tear apart their marriage, so they need to get healing that, or healing, psychologically. Do know a couple of people that I'm friendly with. One of them is Ryan, that deals their psychology with trying to help people with post paranormal trauma,
oh,
which is extremely important, but extremely rare
yeah,
in the psychological community.
probably not talked about as much.
No, not of thought.
Now, do entities behave differently when a priest is present on an investigation?
Yes, in fact, I was talking with Nick and Tessa about this. They were talking about the Hinsdale house, and how and Pastor Tessa said, "I won't go back there again."
Oh,
And my friend Wade Kirby said, "I won't go back there either. It can be very intense there." I went years ago before and owned it, and it was still kind of much needed repair. And they were telling me, "Oh, things flew out of the cupboards, this, that, and the other," and I'm going, "Great. I would love to see this." I come in, nothing,
they're on their
nothing,
best behavior.
nothing. That's the downside of being the priest, is they're gonna go dormant because they know why you're there, and they ain't gonna wanna, their head, with their horns and all that. Even when I was at the orphanage, thank God Tessa could see the image. I couldn't, you know. I could just go after with holy water and piss it off. But yeah, they are on their best behavior, unless they're a high level demon, and then they're prideful, you know. And it has happened a few times, but it's not the norm when the priest comes in,
Yeah,
unless you stop provoking. Once you stop through religious provocation, some things may happen, but it's not often. So I have to, go with what I see, what I hear competent people telling me about the experience there,
yeah,
and go with that. I am, like I am more and more in tune with the Holy Spirit, that I can sense things, but that's coming. I'm not a psychic, not a medium, nothing like that. but the spirit's gift of discernment, I think I try to deny it too many times in my life because I didn't want to mislead people. So I just kind of like disregarded it.
Yeah,
But being around good people like Tessa, and I have other friends who are sensitives, it's opened me up to be more objective and open to that sense.
that's great. I know I've heard of the Hinsdale. I've never been to the Hinsdale. I do want to someday at least go once. I've heard that people have brought stuff home with them from there. It's one of the things I've heard from that. Don't know how true that is, but
I missed what you said. It's Wi-Fi sometimes goes batty. So,
no, I
what would
said
you
that.
say that you heard?
Oh, I heard that sometimes things follow you home from there, from the Hinsdale.
I mean, yes, I have heard that, but that's true with any site that you do. If you
Yeah,
don't protect yourself, and you don't protect yourself before and after, and unfortunately, that I put that in my workbook, and it's like you got to do that. And so, if you have faith enough and certain enough that you forbid anything, always in the name of Jesus, not in your own name, because they're going to laugh when you do it in your own name. Then yeah, that is, but that's true for any haunted location.
yeah. Well, I'm going to be. I'm very new to the whole paranormal investigating. I've always done the history stuff.
Hmm.
Fascinated with the history behind the hauntings. May
That's
16th is.
very important.
Oh,
That's the that's the
that's not.
that- yeah, that's the groundwork that's very helpful because you don't know if it's the land, the house, or the area. That's vital.
Yeah, yeah. And well, May 16th of this year will be. I'll be going on my first overnight investigation. I'll be going to the Wildwood Sanitarium. I'll be going to the
Oh
Wildwood
yeah, I heard of that.
Sanitarium. That's going to be my first overnight investigation.
Where is that
There,
again?
that's in Salmonica, New York. It's about 30 minutes from the Hinsdale. Actually, we're going the night. I'm going with the Misfits Paranormal Crew, which is a local crew of mine that's near where I am, and we're going down the day before, spending the night, and then we're going to go do the investigation because it is a 7 hour drive, so it's it's a ways. I did I did hint to him. I said we should go over and see if we can at least get a tour of the Hinsdale, but I'm not sure if we're going to do that or not yet.
Well, if you do, you can call Dan Place and see.
Yeah,
'Cause they're saying that what I've been told now is not as much as the house as it is the land.
that's what I had heard too.
Yeah.
I was talking to the other side investigations. They're going to be going there in April to Hinsdale, and they were saying that it's more the land than the house itself. So, but yeah, I don't know if we're going to get there or not the day before, the day of, but I'm looking forward to Wildwood. It's going to
Hmm.
be, I think, it's going to be fun. I lived in a haunted house for 2 years, and like I tell everyone, it's not like you see on TV where there's action 24/7 at
Thank God.
all. Yeah, thank God. Once in a while, I've seen full body apparitions. I have, heard footsteps, phantom babies crying. Sounds like people are dancing upstairs, and there's no one upstairs. Down in the cellar, there is something not nice. Do not go down there at 3 in the morning. I've done that before, and I would never do that again. I never saw anything, but I don't know if you ever got the feeling where because what happened was my somehow at 2:33 in the morning, our breaker blew. And this is an old farmhouse. And the breaker box is not, of course, upstairs. It's down in the far end of the cellar. So I went down with just a flashlight because there was no cell phones. This was about 20 years ago. And so as soon as I hit the bottom of the stairs, every hair on my body stood up. And it got extremely, extremely cold. And so I started walking with the flashlight. At first, I started walking. Then I ran, pulled on the string light because in the middle of it was where the light was. So I turned that on, ran over to the box. But the whole time I could feel there was a hole where our washer or dryer, our washer, I think, pipes went. It was like a little hole that ran under the house, and I could feel something. It just felt like I was being stared down and watched. I could see nothing, but it felt very uncomfortable, and it was bad. I don't know if I was freaking myself out, but I had seen other things. I'd seen full body apparitions in the upstairs, even on the second floor, and so I wasn't thinking about it till the cold, but I ran back up, and I never went back down there in the middle of the night ever again. I don't think it was demonic or anything. It was something grumpy. I
Mm.
think there was something. It wasn't friendly as the other ones that were in the house. But like I said, it doesn't happen often. I saw in the 2 years I lived there, I saw maybe three or four full body apparitions, and two of the times it was the same little old lady. So, but yeah, so it's not as crazy as some of the I won't name some of our more modern shows on YouTube and TV that dramatize. So, kind of back to you. I kind of went on a tangent there, but
That's okay.
what what's the case that has stayed with you the most? The one that's tested your faith and your understanding of what is really out there?
There have been so many different cases throughout the years, but what I usually tell people is the most formidable for me that personally was a case that became personal because it involved people that I knew and loved. When I had the PWSM group, we responded to a convenience store in Massachusetts, and we had gone down there and to battle this thing at the invitation of a investigator. When we went down, there was definitely phenomenon. One of the tech guys got bit in the and I heard him go, "Ow!" We looked at it; it looked like a snake bite,
Oh,
like a fang kind of thing. And another one, my friend who was an empath holding the camera started zoning out, and so I had to grab the camera from him and start praying over him for relief. A box that was no way anybody was near, a big supply box, fell on its own. But within time, we were able to get it out, and we went back home. And so my friend lived in Taunton, Massachusetts, and little did we realize that something went home with him,
oh no.
and now it's starting to wreak havoc with. It was a seducing spirit for him, so he had the whole thing of being seduced in his dreams, and but we got and there too we got activity. He knew enough because he was a seasoned investigator. He put the camera up to his bed to observe his sleep, and he was tossing and turning. But also on the night table near him, we saw a candlestick on its own and stop before it fell.
Wow.
We heard this banshee scream outside of the house. Not we, he did. And I could hear it from his phone. And then asking people afterwards, apparently no one else had heard it. When we were doing the first investigation of the first again said, "Oh," and he had this burning, like 3 marks on his back, like
Oh,
scratch, but it was red. Yeah, and it's like, "Holy crap." And I knew what that meant. So, and it took 3 times, 3 attempts, I believe, definitely 2, but I believe 3 attempts for me to do a deliverance over the house for it to go away. And finally, I had his wife basically tell the thing to keep its hands off her husband and use her own faith. And she just commanded. And that was actually a game changer.
oh,
She had faith,
yeah,
obviously, but she was saying, as the wife, this is my husband, and it worked. And so then after that, things were fine. But it was exhausting, it was emotional, and it was personal to me, you know.
yeah. Oh, I can imagine That's a scary story. They
And
call
it's
them.
on. It's the Haunted picked it up.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, so there is only the second part at the home because it had to do with their pet, their dog. When he was going up into the attic, it was going nuts. Didn't want him to go up there, and we come to find out that probably that's where it was hiding. At the
Yeah.
time. So it was called. It's the Haunted on the former Animal Planets. The Haunted. It's called Demonic Seduction.
I'll have to watch for it. I know I'm rewatching. Like I watched all the Haunting when it first came out.
Yeah.
I'm starting. I started watching it from season one. I'm only a few episodes in, so I'll have to watch for that one because
Yeah,
it's on my.
there's a difference between the haunting and a haunted.
Okay, so I have to
A
look see which
haunted,
one.
and that kind of supposed to deal with animals somehow tied into it. A
Oh,
haunted was on, I forgot what station that was, but a haunted was Animal Planet.
okay. I'll have to check that out then too because I know I'm watching. I think The Haunted, I believe, is the one I'm.
That might be it, but
Uh,
it's not the one where they say somewhere in between the evil and there lurks, that introduction. Is it that one?
that's the one I'm watching. I think I'm
Okay, yeah.
rewatching. I rewatched My Ghost Stories. The show
Yeah.
My Ghost Stories. I rewatched not all of it. I'm in the. What happens is I watch so much paranormal stuff that, like, after I watch one show for so long, I have to switch it up and move on to a different one.
I don't watch any except one, and it's Project Fear because I don't know why. I just like it. I love the
You're
fact
right.
about that having to sleep at home. And my bucket list is to meet them, and I've wanted to. So every thing I guess I really want to meet Project Fear. My friends trying to get me to meet them. Well, come to find out now, I got invited to go to Penhurst with Nesper.
Yeah, they're going to be there.
So yeah, so that may be my one chance.
Yeah.
I mean, I love what they do. Sometimes I want to hit them in the head. Don't do that.
Yeah. I imagine watching a paranormal show for someone that's done it already, and in your what you've done is much different than watching it as like a kind of a fan.
Yeah. And again, I still watched Paranormal State as a fan because I was a fan then.
Yeah.
And I would watch it regardless of whether I was on it or not.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, you're right. Because when you do the work, watching these others, because again, it's frustrating how the producers what they spin on it, and it's like, well, you're giving people the wrong idea. You're giving people the wrong idea. I did
Yeah.
watch a short one when I was working in hospital ministry. I was up later. It's called School Spirits. I don't even know what station that was. It was like haunted, like high school to a haunted. So it'll be on YouTube. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I imagine it was short lived because I haven't heard about it now.
Yeah. I don't know if I've heard of it or not. It doesn't sound familiar, but
I
now
should
is
and I should plug Nick's Paranormal Lockdown because he
that's
was telling me the same thing about having to sleep there alone. That was formidable.
and that's actually it's on my list to watch. I have not watched Paranormal Lockdown, but it's on my list to watch. I want to watch that. There's a few different ones that I haven't watched yet because I went for a while where I stopped kind of watching anything
Mhm. Of course.
on TV
Yep.
because it was just and even on YouTube, there was very selective things I would watch when it came to the paranormal, and now I'm just kind of there's certain ones I'm watching back again, but that is one that I would like to watch that came on during that period where I wasn't watching anything.
Hmm. Right. Right.
So now, is there anything the paranormal community gets fundamentally wrong about demonic activity that you wish you could correct?
I wish I could correct people's casualness about it and thinking they can equate, going into a house that's infected by a demonic influence rather than a spirit, and trying and how they interact with it. Yeah. Because like I frame go, oh, this is a demonic spirit. Okay, can you tell us what—" It's like, "No, never in your own name. This thing is more power," like, or grasp with it. And it's like, first of all, I doubt it's a demonic spirit because it would just mop you up. But yeah, it's like this. Once you go in and you discern that this is something evil and demonic, then you need to stop and say, do I have the faith level and the knowledge to be able to combat a fallen angel, you know, a demonic
Yeah.
entity? And if I don't, there's no shame in that. Stop, find someone that does, and
Yeah.
ask them to help. So yeah, that frustrates me when it just seems so casual about the demonic. And then when, and then when these people say, I do exorcisms, I do this, okay, really? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
maybe it's oppression,
Yeah.
maybe it's oppression, but it's certainly not, you
Now,
know.
you've dealt with dark forces for decades. What does that do to a person spiritually over time, and how do you protect yourself?
Protecting myself, yeah, I go for a few days praying. I go, in the Catholic faith, we have the Eucharist, we believe is the real presence of Christ in the tabernacle. So I will go before what we call the Blessed Sacrament, the Holy Eucharist, and spend holy hours praying there. And I will do my prayer. The rosary is very powerful for me. The Blessed Mother is an integral part of my war chest and my spiritual life. So preparing, asking the help of the saints, asking for, the spiritual protection of the Lord, the precious blood, the cross, and then even fasting if I have to, also if it warrants it. And then going in there again, realizing that I'm not coming in my own name. So I have to protect not only myself when I get in there, but everybody else around there. And then we
Yeah.
have to pray at the end to make sure nothing retaliates and comes home with us. So yeah, it's not just a simple process. And the reason why I tell groups that they need to pray before and after is because you don't know when you go in what you're dealing with. You don't know if it's going to be negative. You don't know, whether it's a spirit or whether it's a dark entity.
Yeah. Very true.
I care
I
that
just have
serious. Yeah.
I just have a couple more questions before we wrap up. Now, what is your message to someone sitting at home right now who believes they have something in their home and doesn't know where to turn?
I would say search it out and find a reputable investigating group that's seasoned and ask their help. Or if they sense there's something evil, call your priest and minister to come in and bless also. And if that doesn't work, or for whatever reason you can't do that, find a seasoned group that will be able to help you if they see that case warrants, because usually they'll have go-to people,
Yeah.
to help. But basically, it's going to all buckle down to your personal faith. We only can come in and help you as far as, but you got to help yourself. It's like a doctor can help someone with a disease or an illness, but you got to do the work after that to maintain and make sure the healing is still there and things are good. So the person has to acquire, go back to their faith, renew their faith, or get a faith life, so that they can be sure that this thing or these things don't come back in a negative way again.
Yeah. Yeah. They really need to do that, and they have to make sure that they get the help. Don't just let it sit there if it's bothering you. Like in my end, when I lived in my haunted house, it didn't bother us that much.
Hmm.
It was there, but it became part of everyday life.
It was benign.
Yeah, it was a benign. It wasn't one that, they weren't aggressive.
Hmm.
They were annoying at times, but anyway, What's next for Father Bob Bailey, and where can people find you? Where are you going this summer? Any cons, etc.?
Yeah. Well, first of all, they can write to it's www.holyswordapostolate.com. And, in there's a lot of information, but should they want to get in touch with me, they can do it through that. And my director of communications, she'll field the questions, about helping all of that to me. Now, in May, I got an invitation from Dave Giuliano. I'm going to White Hill in New Jersey. I'll be going to that. And then later on, I'll be going to Penhurst with Nesper, and I'll kind of be the father guardian of people going into the museum, that they have, the traveling museum. July, I will be with Tom Gormley and Charles Rosenay for their Connecticut Paranormal. And then August, I will be at New Orleans Paracon. And then September, I will be in Cleveland, Ohio. And then I don't know about October. Someone did reach out to me about Kansas, but I have not heard yet. They mentioned the Sally House, and that just, set bells off, because that's on my bucket list of wanting to visit.
Mine too.
Yeah, so we'll see with that. So it's enough. It's busy enough. Plus, I have podcasts that I love doing, and it's
Yes.
easy enough because you can do it from your house. But yeah, that's basically the season. What it ended up, I had nothing after the Devils on the Run tour, and then boom, boom, boom.
Wow. I'm just dipping my way into going to conferences. I'll be attending my
Yeah.
first conference for the Vermont Horror Sci-Fi and Fantasy and Sci-Fi Expo, April 25th and 26th. I'm actually hosting the paranormal panels for both days that they're going to be having. I know Adam Barry's going to be there. Nathaniel's Elwell's going to be there. A
I
few
love
others.
Nate. He's such a gentleman.
Oh, he is. He's fun.
And Morgan.
Morgan too. Yeah.
Last time I
Oh, yeah.
saw them was either in Maine or Kentucky. I forget, one of those. It just melds together after a
They
while.
all meld together. Well, this
Yeah,
year I'm
people.
starting out slow. This will be my first conference. I've been invited to a few others. I was hoping to go to the Whitehall one, but that kind of fell through. It doesn't look like I'm going to make it there. And, still working on maybe Maine, maybe Massachusetts, but the Massachusetts ones that Sam Beltrusis is doing, those are both ones I'd like to attend, but not 100% yet if I'm going to be able to. So, but anyway, it's been thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure having you.
Very well.
We've had a great conversation tonight, and you know, to the listeners, the past may be gone, but its spirits live on. Thank you for joining us on this haunted history adventure. If this episode moved you, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and leave a comment below. Tell me about what part of this conversation tonight hit you the hardest. You can find Father Bob and the Holy Sword Apostolate through the links in the description below. And, if this resonated with you, feel free to support his ministry. And I will put all of his information below. And as always, you can find The Common Historian on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook by searching The Common Historian. Until our paths cross again in the realm where history and mystery collide, stay curious, stay brave, and I will see you next time.